Okay, everybody. Welcome back for day five evening session. Feels good being halfway through here. It's definitely a good point for everybody. As you know, element A is probably one of the longest. It's also the most grueling because it's the research, it's the surveys, it's wait time getting those responses back, reaching out to experts. That takes a lot of time with our students. Sometimes it's a couple weeks just for the research, another couple weeks just for doing the survey questions, reaching out to experts, looking for the research. Almost a whole month they could be spending on element A. Element B, we learned, is all about looking at what's currently on the market, patents. You're looking at Google patents, USPTO, understanding that sometimes there's products out there that there's not patents for products that have already been manufactured. So that's why our students are going out to places like Amazon, Target, Walmart. But depending on the topic, there's also commercial places that are resellers or providers for certain other solutions. So we just want to make sure we're looking at all different angles. Element B is also where we get the patent attorney involved. I have the librarian come back in. As we know, these websites, they are hard to maneuver. So we have to kind of, and I do this too, I kind of have to revisit it a lot myself just to kind of get good with it. So as I'm showing my high school students and helping them, I can help them navigate. And of course, the librarian there is helping me out. Hopefully, you're keeping a little list of people to become friends with or even start reaching out before the start of school. So when you do get back to school, you can have that conversation with the librarian or reach out to administration as far as maybe helping find a patent attorney. Again, every school has some type of legal team out there. They may not have patent attorneys. However, all the attorneys, a lot of them know each other and they have friends. So that's all part of that element B. In element C, we learned about, hey, what are the design requirements? What are the product specifications? And that's where we talked about that capstone love triangle is what is the data telling me? Yep, there is a problem out there and there needs to be a solution, but I'm also looking at what should be included as part of the solution. Sometimes when students are getting those survey results back, sometimes it's not really giving them those answers. They may be learning things that they didn't think about. So sometimes they even have to draft a second survey that they're reaching out and repolling those same populations. Or sometimes they went out and they may have surveyed the wrong group out there. So that is normal. Sometimes our students have to do multiple surveys within this class in general. But just know that sometimes things don't go perfect for all the teams. That's why for element A, for justification, we're doing the academic side with the research articles, and then we also have the market side as well. Does anyone have any questions right now on what we've done so far in element A, element B, or element C? In Project Lead the Way Land, just so if you know, when you are looking at my PLTW, again, make sure this is like the student version. You are kind of required to, please go through and hit these little drop downs here, but you'll see everything in element A, element B, and element C is component two within the Project Lead the Way curriculum. So today, when we introduce element C, there's some resources inside here. Not a whole lot, but that's where I find trying to find what your product specifications are, those design specs, the capstone love triangle, that's what I use for my LMNC. That's what works for me. But just Scott and I are just trying to show you different ways. But this is what comes into play. This is a big milestone. When students complete Element C, which is part of component two, they've done a lot. We're almost this is Thanksgiving time. We're approaching like Christmas break time. So they've done a lot in this component too. It's also the longest component because the rest of the elements are going to fly by. We're going to be learning that over the next couple days in here. The other elements go by really quick. Now, it comes time for students to start reporting out on their findings. So this is what my students do. And Scott, I'm sure you do something similar here. But when they finish elements A, B, and C, they are going to do a project proposal. So this here's an example of a project proposal. So this is where the students, they're getting up and I make them, they're not wearing a tuxedo, but they're wearing maybe like a nice dress shirt and maybe some slacks. Maybe I have some visitors come inside the room, maybe other teachers right now. But this is a big, big milestone event for students. But what students are doing is they're sharing what they've done so far. You're going to have teams working in their own silos. So I like this because it allows other teams to kind of see what other students are doing. So when we talk about kind of setting due dates and everything, at this point in the curriculum, I'm doing this like right between Thanksgiving break and the holiday winter recess. So for me, this is right around like the first or second week in December. But each team is going to come up and they are going to do a presentation. So for example, this team here, food waste in the refrigerator. So what this team is doing is they're going out and they're talking about who they are, problem statement, why they justified it, patent research, and their design requirements. So right here is one of the students. He's going to get up and kind of present who he is, just real quick. It's just 15 seconds, who they are, classes they've attended, and where they see themselves in the future. So each team member gets up and they present a little bit about themselves, and then they dive right into their problem statement. So their problem had to do with reducing food waste. You can see they have a who, what, where, when, why, and how within their problem statement so far. But then they have their pictures. This here is their graphic swag. Have people actually understand what it's like to see the food waste. So now your audience can visually see, oh, yeah, that looks exactly like my refrigerator inside there. Yep, I see the mold on there. Yep, pretty gross. We've all forgotten things. We have those nasty stenches inside there. Where is that coming from? And that helps segue the student from problem statement to, hey, we went out there, we conducted surveys. Well, the whole purpose of the survey was to get more information about the problem. So they are now kind of explaining some of their survey questions. This is helping them out when they get into some of their problem identification and problem justification. They want to know how often they find expired food in the refrigerator. Is it daily? Is it weekly? Is it monthly? Is it yearly? Which does happen. And even too, what are some of the most common foods inside the refrigerator? So they have a better understanding of how long the food's been staying inside there and what kind of food has been inside the refrigerator. And are people interested in a solution? If so, they ask how much they're willing to pay. I like to stay away from that question only because that could limit their creativity when they start coming up with solutions themselves. But then again, they had time. In school, your students are going to go out looking for different experts out there. So you can see they found some experts that they went out and interviewed. So they have the academic research, they have the market research, they have expert interviews. So they went out there and actually talked to these people. They got pictures of the people. Now they got into some of their articles, so they were summarizing some of their articles inside there. They're taking a look at what some existing solutions are on the market. So now they're getting into some Element B stuff, and they're kind of explaining what some of these different items do on the market. Now they have some patents that they're critiquing here. So they already did all the work. All the stuff is inside their Google Drive shared folders. They have all their patents in Element A, their patents, their pictures of products on the commercial retail market there in Element B, but now they're reporting out. They're talking about their different stakeholders. Based on their research, a lot of their research came from having surveys conducted at these type of places here, grocery stores, Target, Costco, Home Depot. They really hit up all these different stakeholders from people that sell refrigerators, work on refrigerators, people that are in the food industry. So you can see they have a lot of different stakeholders involved. So at the end of it, they want to design something, and what they found out in their research is that they needed something that was simple for the users to understand. No one really wanted to maintain whatever it was that they came up with. Something had to be universal for all refrigerators. Yeah, it wanted to be cost effective, but who doesn't want something that's cost effective? And they wanted some type of design that was able to increase visibility or awareness of what kind of food is in the refrigerator. So it's almost like they just get up, they talk about their journey. Where have they been so far? Where did the research come from? Let's talk about some of those survey results. What are the experts saying? Let's look at current and past solutions. With that in mind, what exactly are you trying to design now? What is it that the team is going to be charged with coming up for a solution? So we spend a day, each team gets up, they probably do like a 5 to 7 minute presentation. Then the next group gets up, the next group gets up. So we do this right as we complete elements A, B, and C, which is component two. And Scott, what are you all doing over there these days with this?
Yeah, okay, so we need to be finished with ours by the evening of the Thursday before the end of the first 9 weeks. And so they're going to present to a jury of professionals that I bring in. And can I share? Come on, get to the thing. Oh, okay. So share. So here's their project proposal for one of the teams. And so they talk about their 5 facts. And the outline for this is what's in the curriculum if it's still in there, and we'll make sure it's there if it's not. And I just transferred it over onto our standard PowerPoint for who we are and everything. So problem statement, and project management, they talk about that. They put in their Gantt chart for what they're going to do. Tack paths, things like that. So they go through all of that. And then let's see, what else have I got here? They write their technical report. So again, we have our letterhead for it, and this is following the ANSI NISO standard. And if you notice, I have them add in their name in parentheses. So this fellow, Bipul Patti, wrote the abstract, and I show them how to use the table of contents that will automatically update, and same with the list of tables, except they screwed it up on this one. They didn't do it right. And so then Lady did the summary, so on and so forth, all the way through. So they write their technical report, and they have all of their appendices and everything as necessary. And they also do their trifold, and I have them plan it out so that each quarter they add some more. So this is where their first quarter and wait, my thing, and then this is the main portion of it. So that's what they do. And then they have their design specification they do too. And for some reason, I'm not seeing this team's design specification. So let's look at a different team. There it is. Okay. So here they have the design specification. I'm using pretty much the same sort of thing for it. So they're describing the product, what the requirements are. And then, these guys went a little overboard. I'm more looking, they don't have numbers on here yet. So it's my chance to have a little bit more of a conversation with them about, we're looking for line item things here for them. So, but that's what we do. And uh, I will get some copies of the feedback forms that the jury put together for them. So you can see that.
Jeff, you're on mute, Jeff. We can't hear you.
I thought you guys can lip read. Oh my gosh. Oh, thank you for letting me know. But as you can see, we want students to be working on their public speaking skills throughout your capstone class. They shouldn't be doing a team presentation for the very first time as their final end of the year presentation. So I just find as great as they finish one of these components, component two, component three, as they finish a component, it's just a great way to get the teams to just get up there and report out. Even in the industry, you have a lot of different teams working on a bunch of different projects. Well, it's great to have everyone come together and just kind of report out on what they've done. What are they working on? Where have they been? Where they're heading next? And it's good too for the kids to see what the other students are working on so they can kind of see how they're doing compared to everyone else. But again, the whole main point of that is just for students to just kind of share what they've done so far. Because remember, in Capstone is all about the journey. What was the journey that they had to do to go through element A, element B to come up with those product design specifications? Anyone have any questions on that before we just talk quickly about our next element here? Our next element here is element D. Aha. Now this is where the fun begins because they're going to be researched to death and they want to do something fun and hands-on. At this point, now they're going to start thinking about solutions. Believe it or not, your students have almost become like mini experts within their topic areas. Even too, when you're in class, they're going to be rattling off things from their research and they're going to be showing you some cool ideas and funny solutions and silly things out there on the market. But they now know a lot about their topic and a lot about their problem. And I like what Scott, Scott, you always talk about that elevator pitch as far as, you being in an elevator. And if someone says, "Hey, what are you working on?" And your students will be able to kind of rattle off real quick everything they've been doing for their project in just a short period of time because of course they chose a topic they're passionate about, they love, they're motivated. So really they're really going to be into that. So for element D, we're now beginning the next component, which is component 3. So you'll see a lot of resources out in the My PLTW area. So part of your on your own time, when you're out there looking in the curriculum, you'll see now we're in component 3, element D. So there's a lot of resources out here. There's a lot of time for students to get back involved inside their journal. But really at this point, they are starting to come up with different designs. Now they are thinking about solutions. So, what they're doing when they start thinking about solutions is now that they know what the customer is looking for, they know what their problem is, now they have to start brainstorming some ideas. And I have them all hold up their thumb. And I want everyone to hold up your thumbs. And if you look at your thumb, they're going to do my students do 30 thumbnail sketches, but they're just quick little sketches, and I allow them to use pencil first inside their engineering journal, and then they can go through after and go over it inside pen. But they're going to come up with 15 different thumbnail sketches inside their engineering journal. And they're going to pass out, "Oh my, 15, I can't draw. I can't do anything. Are you crazy, Mr. Butler here?" I can't, no, I'm not an artist, and I understand it. Some students are really good at drawing and sketching. Maybe you want to get an art teacher involved to just show them the basics. But at the end of this, we want students to be able to draw some basic shapes, maybe stick figures, but the way they annotate it is what we're looking for. And I start off too, usually I have my little dock camera set up with them, and I draw something. And this is just kind of like a silly idea here that I draw and I hold. I don't know if you guys can see it because everything is blurred, but I ask everyone, I'm like, "Hey, what is that there? What is that? Can you see that?" And they're all like, "Oh, it's a smiley face. Oh, it's two wheels." And I go, "No." And then I put a little annotation behind it and I hold it back up again. And I'm like, and I know you guys can't see that, but I'm like, "It's a dinosaur." They're like, "What? A dinosaur?" And I'm like, "Well, I put little arrows by it. I annotated on it because I can't draw." But that's what we want students to do. When they start sketching, we want them to feel comfortable just to throw ideas out. Don't worry about how good of a artist or drawer or mechanical illustrator, anything. Just as long as they can draw basic shapes or stick figures, but then annotate. That's what we're looking for here. So there's a method that they're going to talk about in the curriculum. It's called Scamper. And again, I'm big into some edutainment here. What I do is I give them a sticker now for element D. But again, I'm making my students do 30 thumbnail sketches. When I was in high school, and even too when I did this training, my high school teacher made us do 50 of these, and I thought it was tough. But when we started doing them, we learned about one of the activities that you do. So basically, even if you think back to that similar solution matrix you did, you saw some goods and some bads about each of those products you were all critiquing. The activity that I do with my students, and I'm going to just play this quick little scamper video for you here in just a second, though. But one of the, let me, there we go. Okay. One of the activities that my students do is they start brainstorming different ideas inside their engineering journal. This particular example here, this was actually a team from Duke University. They were working on a marshmallow roaster. The team was based on camping. They all loved outdoors, they all loved camping, and it turned out that there is no perfect way to reproduce the perfect roasted marshmallow. So it all came down to having the right heat source, holding the marshmallow from X amount of feet away. But they had to start thinking about solutions. What kind of device could they come up with that can help them roast that perfect marshmallow? So you can see they started brainstorming all these different ideas. I see stick figures inside there, but I see all these annotations inside there. So right now they're starting to come up with all these different ideas. This particular project here, they're working on the clippings left behind push mowers. So the way that the clippings come off and they don't want to clump on the grass, getting your mulch on your driveway, they get left on the grass and then that makes little burn marks on your glass. So a lot of research showed, and there's actually research about lawnmowers and kind of like material composition and the whole thing with even the scientific background and product life cycle, decomposition rates and temperature. A lot of good science and STEM principles there being used. But they knew that they had to create a mower, and the way that they did the mower had to do with the blade design and the way that that exhaust comes from the mower mechanism itself. So they were looking at all these different forces within the mower. So they did a lot of research and they're incorporating that as part of their design. So each team member came up with 15 different sketches. And I make my students do this individually. So they're doing this inside their individual journal. They're not allowed to look at each other's thumbnail sketches yet. They will do that later on. But for this particular activity, they're doing this by themselves. They're doing this over like a long weekend. This could be something where, hey, it's right around that holiday break time. They're going to be going away for a week. What a perfect opportunity to have them take their engineering journals home and have them start scampering thumbnail sketches inside their journal. So you can see where each student comes up with 15 different ideas. And you all might be thinking, oh my gosh, 15 different ideas. That's really, really hard to do. How am I going to do that? Now, if you all just bear with me here, because I know Zoom always has some issues here. I think I have to do share computer sound.
Yeah. Well, he's figuring that out. I don't do that many. I do like have them do 10, but I have them do it in class and I have them spread out around the lab. So they're not sitting next to each other. No team member is sitting right next to each other because when they're all sitting around one of the tables, there's 3 or 4 of them, they're all looking at each other and I get 30 or 40 pictures from them, but they're all the same. So, and I have tend to not let them do it on their own over the weekend or over the holiday or anything like that because they're communicating with each other anyway. So, hey, what do you think of this? Oh, hey, that's a good idea. So that's how I handle it.
Yep. And it's fun. I start them off, all right, come up with some ideas. So they may just sketch one or two, and then like I'm stuck. So again, classroom management comes in. I hand out Smarties to my students. So again, back to that edutainment piece, and I give them a sticker that has the word scamper on it. So I have hand out Smarties to them. So now they're eating Smarties and it keeps them from not talking, everyone. That's the whole reason behind it. So they're eating their Smarties and they're taking some notes down inside their notebook on this scamper method. So I found this video and I love this video because it tells them exactly what they could do as far as coming up with some creative ideas. And I just want to play a couple minutes of this video with you all, just so you can see how they took a concept. And the concept they're taking here is actually Smarties, so that's why I give them the Smarties, but how they're coming up with as many different variations of Smarties by using the Scamper method. So let's just take a couple minutes here and we'll take a look at the first couple steps here. All right. And if you want the soundtrack on there, we can put that in the shared resources folder for you. Right here on my screen. All right. So what I start doing with my students is, this is inside their journal. So taking everyday items to the beach. I print out their similar solution matrix too. So they'll have this out in front of them just in case they get stuck. So after they brainstorm, they're going to do one or two sketches, they're going to get stuck. I pass out the Smarties, I show this video, then they write some more ideas down, then they kind of get stuck again. Then I said, let's go back to our similar solution matrix. Let's look at the beach swag and wagon. Let's look at the shady rays. Let's look at the stroll and go. Now, what are some good about Shady Rays? Oh, they have this nice rope design. So, all right, so I'm going to go ahead and make a little buggy thing with maybe a rope on it. Maybe another one is going to be a sled type design because the sled is going to be great in the sand. But you know what? It'll be fine maneuver in the sand, but not going to go so good in the sidewalk. So if it's not going to go good in the sidewalk, then maybe I want just wheels on the back part. Well, instead of a rope, maybe I want a push handle inside there. So already I just took like two existing solutions. Not that I'm like stealing their ideas, but I'm just kind of modifying some of those ideas with part of my own solution. So already, I just came up with 4 or 5 solutions just by looking at some of the items that are currently out there on the market. So that's the Scamper activity. There are other resources in the Project Lead the Way curriculum, but these kids, they were just having a hard time with it. But I felt doing the whole thing with the Smarties really made them open up. And I found some funny things too. When I was doing the Smarties, I found on, I think it was like a Dollar General or one of those places. They had gummy Smarties. They had Smarties toothpaste I found. So I started bringing in all these items and I was just saying, look, they took the simple concept of the Smarties and now they're expanding it to other areas such as toothpaste and they have like a squeezable gel type Smarties and then they have Smarties ice cream. I've seen the Smarties cake mix before. So it was just interesting to see all the different variations out there. Scott, anything else with Scamper method or really trying to get those kids to open up and come up with as many different ideas as possible?
Um, no, not right off the top of my head. I might have, when they're doing, I might have two students from different teams talk to each other. So, okay, describe to me what it is that you're trying to do, and then they might say, well, what if you did this? What if you did, and to each other, but not from the same team. So we're not getting duplication of things.
Yeah. All right, everybody. The breakout rooms, those are, oh darn. I thought the breakout rooms were open, but I'll get those opened up here momentarily. The
Yeah,
main
I was going to create those for you, but then I didn't have the list of the names of the whole
Oh,
team.
yep, yep. Well, if you're like me, Scott, I'll forget some of them there. But yeah, as I'm going ahead creating the breakout rooms, if you see on here, just please, like later on tonight, tomorrow, make sure you're reviewing the resources in like our day 5 folder. Uh, this weekend, start thinking solutions. Do that on your own. Do that later tonight, Saturday, Sunday, because when we come back on Monday, you're going to be looking at each other's thumbnail sketches. So when we come back and look at each other's thumbnail sketches as a team, you'll be kind of going through another Scamper process within each other, and then you'll be kind of picking out some solutions that the team is going to go with for the rest of next week. Other than that, like I said, we're transitioning from component 2 to component 3 as a team this afternoon. If you did not finish that similar solution matrix, make sure you get that turned in. Uh, think about your design requirements. I know on here I put voice of customer, customer requirements, product specifications. You don't need to do that love triangle, but just think about and list what are you trying to design? What are your team design specifications that you ultimately need to come up with as far as your final design? Those product specifications, those design specifications we've been talking about, eventually those are going to be testable. So that's something that we're going to be able to test. And for our students, when they create their prototypes, they're going to come up with testing plans based off of those specifications. Scott, anything else I'm missing? Or does anyone else have any questions right now?
Jeff, when you say testable, can you just give a quick example?
So if I'm making something for the beach, when my students build or when my team builds this beach device, I'm gonna have to test it. So I know when I test it, I need to find some sand. So I may actually take this to the beach, or if it's testing it at my school, I'm gonna probably go up to where like the softball field areas where they have sand. I'm gonna set up cones and I'm gonna be running a test where my students have to actually test their prototype. Keeping beverages cool. Well, I know this thing has to keep beverages cool, so I need to set up some type of way to test these beverages. It's going to be getting some thermometers, maybe some ice, some bottled water, and coming up with a way to test it. So one of the elements is you're going to be coming up with a testing plan. And then after the students actually write the testing plan, and this is where I get the science department involved because they're really good as far as coming up with test procedures and things like controlled environments and resources involved, but they're going to test each of those specifications to make sure that this design that they came up with, that they built, really is going to work.
Got it. Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah,
Scott, anything else there for testing? I know we'll be talking
yeah,
about that next week.
yeah. I think I mentioned before, I was an instrumentation engineer, so I'm into all of that. And I keep looking through the Vernier catalog and say, "Oh, we should get some of those." Then I walked over to my science department. Between the first and the second floor, I swear they've got $250,000 worth of Vernier sensors over there. So I just go over there and say to either biology, chemistry, or physics and say, "Hey, could I borrow a couple of these sensors?" Of course, the other couple of years ago, there was one we were looking for, and it was the one they didn't have. So I had to order one of those. So other than that, though, but your science department, especially your physics department, uh, can be a great source of things. If so, be in good standing with the folks over there, so that you can you say, "Hey, could we borrow a couple of beakers or a graduated cylinder and stuff like that?" There's a hallway I walk through in their prep room, and I keep walking by this big rack of all the graduated cylinders, and I swear one day I'm going to make a whole bunch of little uh, graduation mortar boards and put them on all of them because they're graduated cylinders. Sorry, dad joke.
Team captains out there, probably a good idea to make an element D folder. So before you all leave today, as you start thinking about Scamper, you are going to each come up with 15 thumbnail sketches. So that's going to be through the weekend. And prior to us meeting on Monday, you are going to throw those 15 thumbnails inside your team's Element D folder. This way you will be able to discuss those with your team. And that's actually going to be one of your E3 block submissions too. They're going to want to see examples, I think, of your 15 thumbnails inside there. So this is where students can take a picture of it, or you can scan it, put that inside your team's Element D folder. But the design product specifications, that similar solution matrix, you may be still waiting for results to come in. And again, teams may be at different stages. Maybe, you had to refine your research a little bit and maybe you had to send out a second survey. But I would say prior to coming in on Monday, day 6, you should have an idea of what your design and product specifications are, as well as your similar solution matrix completed with the specifications inside there. So deliverables have been updated, everyone. Today we are we'll come back a little earlier just so we can kind of get things wrapped up. And I know that they're very strict on our time. And it'd be nice to say, "Oh, you can go," but we'll come back at 5:30. So we'll come back in about an hour for the recap and of course to answer any questions you all have. But with that said, you have the rest of the session to work, and we'll be coming back at 5:30 East Coast time for a wrap up. Breakout rooms are open. Hey everyone, welcome back. Thank you for coming just back out of your breakout rooms here. I know some of you have things that you're ready to do on your own, and please use time for it's your own time, whether it's tonight, Saturday, Sunday, or Monday morning. But just a few reminders in your team's Element D folder. That's where you're going to put your Scamper 15 thumbnail sketches. Hold up your thumbs, everybody. Those thumbnail sketches, you can brainstorm first in pencil, then go over a pen after. But when you have your 15 different ideas, don't sit down and do it all at once. Get those creative juices flowing. I have my students go out and, walk around when they're starting to do their thumbnail sketches. If they're doing it over a long weekend, if theirs is beach related, they're going to go to the beach and get some ideas down. They're going to go back and look at those products available in the commercial retail market. Have them open up that Element B similar solution matrix. Let's look at some of those products. Let's look at what's working well, what's not working so well. Let's look at how we ranked them. So they're going to be working on that for some time. On Monday, when we come back together, part of your team time is you're going to be discussing those 15 thumbnails with each other. You may come up with different ideas based off of what other team members came up with. That's totally natural. And then you're going to be choosing some of the top thumbnails, and we're going to be refining those, and then we're going to be putting those inside a decision matrix. So we have some more Matrix fun happening on Monday, and that's going to lead us to some drawing, some both hand drawing and some virtual drawings. We'll be talking about CAD software, programs like Fusion and Onshape. Again, not everybody has those type of 3D modeling skills. And we're also going to be talking about a couple more elements that are part of this component 3. But we know we went over a lot this week. Elements A, elements B, elements C. They're the long and grueling elements that take a long time, a lot of staring at the computer, a lot of reading. But now with element D, when you start doing the thumbnail sketches, that's when students start switching gear and it starts to spark interest again. But we all know if students don't do a good time in the research, if they don't have the survey results, if they don't have the expert interviews, they're going to have a hard time going through the rest of this design process. Scott, any housekeeping announcements or anything, reminders you want to chat about?
Yeah, just don't forget those discussions too. I'm looking at block 2. There's a bunch of you who have not done either discussion 1 or discussion 2. Otherwise, it looks like we've almost closed out block 1, and it looks like we can close out the submissions for block 2. So good job there, guys. And I'm still trying to collect the data on block 3 and block 4, but keep up the good work. Try to keep up with stuff as best you can. And good job, folks. It's been a great week.
Yes, good week. And also too, as you're going out tonight, yeah, you're doing those blocks in the E3 system, but do go out to the actual course area and just make sure that you're reviewing the information in each of the elements. So again, we're wrapping up element C and we're getting into element D. So inside element D in the curriculum, you can see where Project Lead the Way, they kind of did their own version, their PowerPoints inside here. But there's some resources inside there, but you can take a look at element D. My screen is cut off, everybody. I'm sorry here. But in element D, you'll see where they have their resources inside there. So just make sure you're clicking through. You want to make sure you get the little check boxes. You want to make sure you get the little green bubbles there filled in. Some of these links you have to be on for like 5 seconds for them to register. But lots and lots of information inside here, but you may not use everything within this curriculum here, but you're going to kind of pick and pull and see what works best with your students. But you'll see right here, there's a Scamper activity. So a lot of this is what Scott and I went over for you, but we're just kind of showing you a couple different ways to do this with your students. So just make sure you're kind of going through this. You're clicking on the links. You're getting the full circles as you go through. You can see how these little check boxes here get fulfilled. Click on the links, with brainstorming solutions. We're going to be getting into this more on Monday. But there's a lot of cool stuff here. I'm not saying you're going to do everything with your students, but sometimes students get stuck. So this is where this whole online curriculum can really help your students if they're struggling through one of these elements. With that said, if you do want to go back out to your breakout rooms, we'll leave those open. But have a wonderful weekend. Thank you for keeping those submissions coming in. We'll get those graded as the weekend progresses. We are looking forward to seeing everyone back again on Monday. It's going to go by quick next week. Lots of team time next week. We'll start talking about presentations and all that good stuff. But with that said, if you have questions, feel
Yep,
free to
and-
hang out and ask. Scott, anything else?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, since it's a nice Friday, do take into account that for those who do, today is National Wine and Cheese Day. So enjoy your Friday afternoon.